hope you're enjoying my dad's videos. Make sure to share this video with family and friends, like and subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you get notified for all my dad's new videos. My social media will be tagged down below so you can follow it. And just remember, Jesus loves you.
Hi guys, just one little factor here before we start this video here today. If for any reason my YouTube channel gets taken down, which could happen because we're challenging the deep state and we're challenging the powers behind the scenes. But if it does get taken down, I'm going to share the link below here. We have a website, drcharlieward.co.uk, and you can subscribe on there to our updates and our newsletters, etc., that are being produced by Lee Hemington. But you'll be able to keep in touch with what's going on. So at the moment, everything is nice and smooth. But if for any reason we get taken down, you simply go to my website, drcharlieward.co.uk, and register there, and you'll get all the information as to where we are or where you can view our videos.
Fun. I love that. Here we are. Looks like we're live. Let's see it, because Charlie, all these social media feeds mess with me, so I have to see if we're live. We are. Welcome to Revolution Network. This is Dr. Jason Dean, and Charlie and I were talking. First of all, Dr. Charlie Ward, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jason. Absolute privilege to be on your show.
And this guy is a complete class act. We've been talking for about 10 minutes before this, and I said we're going to talk like we're down at the pub and just to have some fun. And we emailed back and forth, and I said, if you really want maximum exposure, we do a 9:30 at night show, but you are in Spain, and you, sir, are such an amazing individual. You said, let's do 3:30 in the morning Spain time. So thank you for being a warrior.
No problem at all. I went to bed early. I went to bed at 9 o'clock, although my wife didn't let me go to sleep till 10 o'clock. But that's a good thing. So, yeah, 3:30 in the morning here in Spain, pitch black outside. Hope we don't wake up the neighbours. But no, there's no right time to tell the truth. Every moment of every day is the right time to tell the truth.
I 100% agree. So before we dive into this, we have a lot of people who know who you are, but we have a lot of people who don't know who you are. You have surged to celebrity stardom on YouTube, sir. What happened? How did you end up in this spot?
I used to do my morning walks over here in Spain. I love the mornings. I'm a farmer's boy originally. I get up early every morning, and I love making money when everyone else is asleep. So I got up and I do my walks, and then I'd heard 6 years ago this was going to happen, then 2 years ago this was going to happen, and then in December last year, when I say this is going to happen, I was talking to one of the US ambassadors that's a very good friend of mine, and he told me they were going to collapse the world's economy in 2020. And my attitude at the time was, yeah, of course you are. And then, of course, when they collapsed the world's economy, or started to in March of this year, when I was doing my walks, I was just telling people that I'd heard this was going to happen, and this was all part of the plan. And they were going to, and as it went on, we knew it was the virus, and then it was vaccines, and then it was 5G, and then it was riots, and all these things were all a smokescreen. I was telling people this 4 months ago. And a lot of people who were listening to me 4 months ago, Jason, thought I was completely mad. And I said, it's got nothing to do with the virus. And then, of course, when it got downgraded, the virus, to nothing more than the common cold, back in March, 4 days before the global shutdown, then I knew what he told me was true. And I've had to point out to so many people in America and worldwide that the government's all downgraded it to nothing more than the flu. So when people are out there wearing masks and spreading fear, you have to remind them that it's nothing more than the common cold. It's not even as bad as man flu. Man flu is bad. And we're all wearing masks, scared to death of this invisible enemy. Well, it is invisible because it's not even there. But it's to do with the global change, the global financial reset, the quantum financial system. It's to do with the whole transition and everything else to cover up what's happening. So I did my little videos walking out there, and I used to finish out with a little saying, "Remember, Jesus loves you," but everyone else thinks you're a Originally, it was a naughty word. Then I put the word twat in there, so I didn't get taken there. And that sort of took me through, and I started off with 37 subscribers, and it suddenly in the space of a week it went to 100, and I was like, yippee! I've got to 100 subscribers, and then suddenly within another week it went to 1,000 subscribers, and I was like, wow, that's a bit scary. And it was only a month later it went to 10,000. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And now I think we're 120, 130,000 subscribers.
130,000 tonight, I saw.
Yeah, it's very humbling. It's very humbling.
Well, you're spitting truth. You're spitting truth, sir.
Well, in a world full of lies and bullshit, it's probably quite refreshing.
I agree. Absolutely. 100%. Now, before we got on here, and I'm not going to say anything, I'm going to allow you to say whatever you are free to say. And I want to get this out of the way at the beginning, because people always ask is, as we dive into tonight, we're going to talk about quantum financial system. We'll talk about Q. We'll talk about the whole thing, and we'll squeeze it all in respect to your time. But, sir, how do you know what you know? I mean, why is this guy on YouTube the one who knows what's happening? Because I post about this stuff every day, and people are starting to come alive with it, but you knew about it a while ago. So give us what you can, obviously.
Well, I work behind the scenes. I was in the hotel business for most of my life. And when you have powerful people come and stay, and people of high office, you tend to look after them in a slightly different way. They tend to want to be hidden away. They're more discreet. So you bend over backwards to make sure they're protected. They're away. They're in apartments or units that are discreet. But you become, they ask you to do little things so they're not in the public eye. So you become good friends with them. And it's not something that happens overnight. And it's evolved. You get to know people, and you get to know their circle of friends and so on. And I've always moved money. By the nature of being in that business, when people come on holiday, they need to change currency. So I made as much money out of changing currency for people as I did in my mainstream work, because that in itself is a separate business. And then you get people, I think it was about 30 years ago, somebody walked into my office in Singapore all those years ago and said, Charlie, I need £10,000 in England today. Can you help me? And I said, fine, if you give me Singapore dollars here, they can pick it up from one of my friends in London. So that was very, very simple. And I made myself a few percent on the top. And I thought, oh, that's easy. And it sort of evolved from there. It's not something you go to university to train for. It's just something that happens in your life, that you happen to be in the right place at the right time. And then it's grown and it's grown. And then my next door neighbor in Spain happened to be one of the royal family in Dubai. This was 15 years ago. And we were just talking about what I was doing. And he said, oh, that could be quite handy, because we've got this, and this. And I said, yeah, that would, our paths could match on that. I could help you with that. And one of the critical things that is to make sure that you declare everything legally. So you're not, although the British government will say, oh, you're money laundering. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm doing. This money is fully declared. Although they've got this thing that they put you in the same box as everybody else, that it's definitely laundered money. Maybe they haven't paid the tax on it. No, they haven't paid the tax on it. You're right, because Dubai is a tax-free country. And most of the people I deal with come from tax-free countries. And the British and the American governments have always struggled to come to terms with that. Although when I move money, and I give this as an example, if I move money out of Africa, which I do a lot, into the UAE, Africa and the UAE are not America. And yet the currency is US dollar. So in the old days, I had to notify the Americans, because it's your currency, that I'm moving it and get consent. And that was dead easy until Donald Trump came along. When Donald Trump came along, he had a million questions as to not just proof of funds, he wanted source of funds and history of funds. So he wanted to know where it's come from and what it's been doing for the last few years. So that was an interesting change. It was a pain in the butt when it first started, but then you get to know, I'll play by the rules. I have no problem with that. So the communications come through work, and you get to know people. Then you end up talking to people. Then I mentioned to you earlier in the naughty days, when we used to move money, we used to have private jets full of beautiful women, cocaine, champagne, and all kinds of things. Very naughty days, very hedonistic. And then my wife came along 10 years ago, and those days had to disappear in a hurry. So now I tend to have diplomats, bureaucrats, bodyguards, and everything else. It's different. It's very, very different from what it was. I don't regret the old days, but the new days have more information in them than the old days. But it's been a very interesting journey, and it's amazing when you're stuck on a private jet with political people how much information they've got that is not public information.
I can't imagine. I imagine you've heard some crazy, insane things that most people every day. This is the crazy part of this, and it kind of transitions from there. Is we have, especially in America, and I'm sure other countries as well, we have been so programmed because the family's been split apart, which is a big thing in America. We want to bring the family back together, but the family's been split apart. Junior's been sent off to school to be indoctrinated. And everyone has started to be taxed more and more to the point where it's a slave system, and everyone runs afraid. So they can't even focus on what's going on in the world. They can't focus what's going on in the financial system because they're trying to survive day to day. And I'm sure you see how that's coming now. There's no way the financial system doesn't change at this point because the dollar is dying. It's that simple. As we transition into this, go ahead into what you see coming and how you see it happening.
Well, it was very, very clear from the moment Trump got into power that he understood that the US dollar had to be finished completely because it was, number one, it was a little boys' club. I've had this argument in Disney so many times in the queue with Americans who think the Federal Reserve or thought the Federal Reserve was part of the government. I've gone, you haven't got a clue. And they were saying, you're English. You haven't got a clue. And I go, I might be English and maybe you've got a point there, but I do have a clue, and it's a boys' club owned by the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and the Naughty Boys, and they basically print money and sell it to the government. No, they don't. It's part of the government. I go, you just don't have a clue, do you? And it's you that don't have a clue. And I go, well, okay, I'm not going to go down that line, but I happen to know you're wrong. And they look at you and go, well, I happen to know you're wrong too. And I said, well, wait and see. So it was very clear that he was determined to get rid of it. And also the old fiat currency, the old US dollar, was not backed by anything. It's completely fresh air. It's worthless. So the fact that, Jason, I just wish you and I had thought of it first. We could print money and sell it to governments. That costs nothing. It's the biggest fraudulent event in the history of my lifetime. I just wish I'd thought of it first. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Then you want it back. You print it. Costs you nothing. You print it. You want it back with tax and interest. How corrupt is that? Which
you can't do because you can't pay back interest because there's no money to make the interest.
Exactly. So it's fraud of the highest level, and Donald Trump and his team have worked that out. So the days of the US dollar are over, and your new currency is known as the USN, the US note. But it's backed by gold, or it's not just gold. I'll clarify that. It's precious metals and anything of value. And I'm involved with the movement at the moment of the assets around the world to spread the assets to back the currency. So they can't just go back to what they've been doing for years and years and years and printing money. There's an awful lot of money, as you know and I know, that's out there that's unrecorded. And there's a lot of gold that's unrecorded. I've actually had the honor and privilege to be in the Philippines and in Vietnam and Cambodia, where I've been into some of the underground bunkers that have, forget millions, I mean billions and billions of dollars in cash and tons of gold, all undeclared. And Trump is fully aware of all of that. And that will be spread around the world to back the economies. There's plenty of gold and there's plenty of cash out there to do exactly what his plan is. And his plan is to make the world honest again, because the world has been living in a lie, in a completely fake world run by hedonistic, evil people. And the trouble is with these evil people, they've been involved in some horrific stuff that we'll talk about later.
Absolutely. It's so fascinating when you say, first of all, you said go from the US dollar or the Federal Reserve dollar note to a US note and then backed by gold. Now, I'm born in 77, so I've been part of the slavery system since the very beginning. Do you know how unbelievable it actually sounds?
I do.
That we're going to a system like that.
Yep, I do, because we've been so indoctrinated and brainwashed into the slavery world of debt, that when we actually see this, and when you start talking about NESARA and GESARA, the brighter side, people can't get their mind around it because it doesn't make any sense, because they've been enslaved to the system for so long. And it's one little example. I work in the Middle East, and I've got some wonderful Indian and Pakistani friends who we work with. And they refuse to call me Charlie because of their brainwashing. I'm boss. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. I go, no, I'm Charlie. Just call me Charlie. Yes, boss. And I'm like, I can't get them to call me Charlie. And it's always yes, boss, or yes, sir. And I said, no, just call me Charlie. I've worked with them for years. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. But they can't get their mind around calling me Charlie. And that's what we're going through right now with people won't be able to get their mind around not having a debt. People won't be able to get their mind around next year. You won't be able to get a mortgage from anybody. Mortgages won't exist because they're debt. Well, how am I going to buy a house? How am I going to buy a house? Well, how about the people who are selling the house on the quantum financial system share the token of ownership with you, and you just pay them off the amount of money for the house? How does that sound? Oh, completely unthinkable.
Even listening to you, it sounds unthinkable. Now, before I dive into the details, because I do want to get some details from you when it comes to quantum financial system, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I know the viewers are going to want to hear. But my first question, right now, some people are terrified that this is heading into a new world order with NESARA, GESARA, as in the bad new world order. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have a lot. And you have to understand, if you know anything about the devil and evil in the world, it'll try and personify itself as something similar to what's happening. This is how it gets you. We all know about the good parrot and the bad parrot on his shoulder. Do this, and they're both parrots. They both look very similar, but one's evil and one's good. And you just have to. This is a time, Jason, where you need to open up your heart and open up your soul, gather the information inside, and trust your intuition. Because inside us, we have the ability to be able to understand. God has given us that ability. The problem is our moral compass has been so out of sync. We just need to re-sync our moral compass. Now, if you believe in God, you can ask God to help you. If you believe in Allah, Allah will help you. If you don't believe in anything, ask your grandmother. She'll help you.
It's so true. And I think that's what the part of the unbelievable part is that, we're born onto this planet, and, the elite, as we call them, the Gateses of the world, always talk about that. Well, the population will get too big, and there's not enough food to go around. There's not enough water to go around. There's not enough electricity to go around. And I have always thought to myself, wait a second. You can grow more food all the time. There's a gigantic planet where you could put land. I mean, you can put grass anywhere you want to grow whatever you need to. We live on a planet that's 70+% water. You can desalinate water. It's already been done. You can make it cheaper. Electricity is in the air. Tesla already figured that out. We have been born into a system that tells us, and I don't want to talk about it from a socialist standpoint or a communist standpoint where everyone just gets everything for free. But if you're born here, I kind of feel like you should be fed in life, or you should have shelter. Like, no child should starve. And it kind of sounds like what we're going into is it's almost untrustworthy for people because we're not used to it. What do you think on that?
I just think that people like Bill Gates and George Soros and the Clinton Foundation are trying to play God. God made us all. It's his decision how many people are on the earth. It's not their decision. Who the hell do they think they are? That's my personal feeling. And whether you believe in God or whether you believe in Allah, Allah is just another word for God. It's interpretation. I remember the day I moved to Spain. In England, you would never hear the name Jesus used as a man's name, but in Spain, everybody's called Jesus. South America, everyone's called Jesus. It's a man's name. I just think there's too many people out there trying to play God, and that's a very dangerous game. And I think, who does Bill Gates really think he is when he says the world's got too many people on it? These people are made by God. It's got nothing to do with Bill Gates. The only reason he's saying that is he's got a vaccination that kills people, and he wants to promote it. So he's suggesting you need to reduce the population. God wouldn't put too many people on the earth if the earth couldn't cope.
I would 100% agree with that. Very well said. Now, let's dive into quantum, because I work in the healthcare field. I work in natural healthcare field, and I do this really strange thing called muscle testing or kinesiology that a lot of people don't understand. And I was a skeptic when I first found it with my wife. And I was like, that's crazy. When someone did it to me and it actually helped bring about health in my world, because I had a heart issue going on, I had major anxiety, all this different stuff, right? And it actually helped me get the proper nutrition in my life. And so I started studying quantum physics on the side. And I went, oh my gosh, everything around us is quantum. It's all quantum. That's the where we go one and where we go all isn't just the thing to like, hey, let's build a tribe. No, literally, we are all connected. Can you dive into some of what we might see in a quantum financial system? Because that's really what it is. It's just all connected. It connects all of us.
It connects the entire world. It connects every country, and there's so many beautiful things about it. They've had hackers trying to hack it, so it's so far it's unhackable. Just from a simple principle, if I send money on the quantum system to Jason, it leaves in euros and arrives in dollars, because that's how the system works. It's a blockchain system. It's a quantum financial system, and it gets there within seconds. It's an incredible system. It's been a journey for me to understand it all, because I couldn't comprehend it. And it's such a simple system. But the quantum financial system, I was told very early on that the whole of the global shutdown was for this to be moved across. Well, I've learned an awful lot about the old fiat system, the old SWIFT system, Federal Reserve System. Well, that will come to an end at the end of this month, God willing, if there's not any more holdups. Because there's been a number of the deep state and the cabal have tried to stop that happening, because they've lost their power. And as David Nino Rodriguez said, it's a bit like a boxer who's out on his feet. He's incredibly dangerous because he's throwing haymakers, and if they hit you, it's not going to knock you out, but it's going to hurt. And that's what we're in right now. They're fighting desperately and throwing everything at us, because they've lost their control. So this quantum financial system, the other thing that was so exciting about the quantum financial system is they're using the quantum system not just for money. They're going to use it for voting. So that where the Democrats have been spending millions and millions and millions on these postal votes so they can rig the system, we're not going to use that system. What a waste of all that money. So now when you use the quantum system for voting, you might actually get somebody you vote for.
Wow.
Which would be an interesting new dynamic.
That's good. I've actually heard that either a trump card or the trump card is blockchain is put in right before the election.
That's exactly right. But I think that's probably a 7, 8, or 9 of hearts, because I think he's got all his trump cards in his hand. He hasn't played any of them. And of course, you've had the Democrats with their 90-year-old representatives with guns with rubber bullets in, firing their bullets ad lib, and not one of them's hit the target. And if they did, they just bounced off. And it's been funny to watch from the outside, because they've fired everything at it far too early. They've shot all their bullets far too early, shown their entire hand. From right from the moment he got into power, they've been after him because they knew that he was going to destroy their corrupt empire. He knew that. They knew that, and they even went as far as saying, if we can't remove him from office by impeaching him, by whatever, we'll have to kill him because he's going to ruin everything we've been trying to do. They're an evil bunch of people. And he's turned out to be an absolute savior. And I'm talking to people who advise him on a spiritual level. And you talk about moving from the third dimension to the fifth dimension and so on. He's on a completely different dimension. I mean, he's way, way ahead of the game, and he sees things that nobody else sees. And I've been watching things, and people think he makes little mistakes or little things. Absolutely not. This is a man in total control, totally in connection with his maker, and totally controlled by his maker.
And that is good to hear for a lot of people out there, because it's the first time really that the majority of Americans, or at least a good population of Americans and the world, honestly, is finally paying attention to politics, because sports have essentially been shut down, thank God. Hollywood shut down, thank God. And it's interesting because I used to hear people say, well, I don't want to talk about politics and religion. Well, religion, that's fine, you do your own thing, but politics, unfortunately, it runs the world. I mean, if you can't talk politics, you need to know what's going on in your country and in the world. And finally, we are getting people to look at what is happening not only in America, but across the planet, which is absolutely phenomenal. So, I mean, from your standpoint and what you've been doing your whole life, I mean, I'm sure it looks really nice to you as well.
For me, it's just incredibly exciting. Like, the start of the domino effect started yesterday because the Iraqi president arrived back in Iraq, having visited the US and the UK. You won't find that in mainstream media. You only find that with people who know. But he's gone back into his own country and he has fired his entire government.
What?
Yeah. And he's going to replace them with people that understand what Trump is doing. So people who, and the moment that's done, the revaluation will start in Iraq. That'll be the first one. And then when that falls, the rest will start to fold out. And I tell you what, when the revaluation happens in Iraq, it'll be a beautiful sight, because Iraq will be flooded with currency, with money. So all those people who left because of the war and ran away because it was being destroyed by evil forces will rush back to build their country and economy. They won't need money from the outside world. They'll have more than enough within their own people. And that's what will build the pride back into them, because they won't be dependent on the Americans. They won't be dependent on Iran. They won't be dependent on anybody. They'll be dependent on themselves. And when that starts to roll out, countries in Africa will follow suit. So countries in Africa won't need to go to other countries for money. They'll come to countries like America and England so that they've got clean water and power. That's all they'll need. Once they've got clean water and power, when I say power, we're talking about electricity, what have you. So they've got energy that's provided, and there'll be, because of Tesla systems, there'll be free energy, and that will be everything. Free energy, free water for these countries in Africa. And once they get that, then all this violence and all this theft will disappear, because they'll have what they're entitled to. They've been entitled to it for years, but it's been stolen off them by evil regimes around the world. And it'll be, I know many, many black people in Africa, some of the nicest people you'll ever meet, but they've been mistreated. So you can't expect them to behave in the same way when they've been stolen and robbed. Africa as a continent has more natural resource than any continent in the world. More gold, more diamonds, more oil. It's been raped and pillaged by evil administrations.
I'm reading a book right now called Target Africa, and I mean, I kind of had an idea on Africa before, but reading that, I have to read it chapter by chapter and walk away from it, because what they have done to that continent is, there's a reason why they don't let everyone know what's going on, because it's absolutely disgusting. They have no use for life there anymore. Like, I mean, Africans are such a great people, and they want to have children, and they want to build up their nations, and they're literally being suppressed from doing so.
Exactly right. Exactly right. They're such wonderful people that have just been trodden over for so many years. And, you know, I look at the evils of people like Gates and his entourage. They decide to test their vaccines in countries like Africa, like India, like they don't matter. Like, you know, there's lawsuits against them for killing so many children with testing vaccines. There's been more children killed testing vaccines than you could ever imagine. But those figures are so hard to find because they hide them away. And they just put it down to all these illnesses in Africa. Complete bullshit. It's genocide.
I 100% agree. Complete genocide is exactly the word. Before we dive into Q, because people love it. By the way, people love you and they love your accent. Just not by the comments.
I've got.
So now I have been for years researching, investing in gold and silver, because I at least saw the collapse coming. I didn't see the reset coming. And then also I dove into things like crypto, Ripple, Ethereum, Bitcoin, things like that. And we have a lot of people. I've been teaching people, hey, I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm telling you, start investing in some of these things because it's coming and it's going to be part of the new money backed by gold. You need to have it. It's going to be revalued, etc. Now, that's all good. And there's people out there who are doing that. However, we do have people out there who I hear from every single night who are a bit terrified, meaning they have 401ks, they have retirements, they have pensions, Social Security, they have money in the bank, and they are worried that it's great that we're going to this, but they're worried, am I going to lose my money? Is it going to be gone? What kind of message do you have for people out there like that?
Well, we had something very, very interesting that happened yesterday, and it's happened yesterday and last week in Europe. And I had to look inside myself. Like I said, when you get the information, you have to form your judgment based on the facts that you have. So this is not factual. This is a Charlie theory on what's happening right now. In Spain, factually, the police have taken a step down. The same in France. In Spain, the reason is quite simple. They found out their pension fund has been stolen. It's gone. The money's all gone out of their pension fund, out of the police. So when I heard that, I went, well, you know who's nicked that would be the government. And then somebody said, oh, no, they blamed it on King Juan Carlos, who actually got arrested 3 or 4 weeks ago and taken to Guantanamo Bay. I know that factually because I know people on the ground that said that he arrived there 3 or 4 weeks ago. What's happened to him now, I don't know, but I know that he went there. And it's not the sort of place you go for a holiday. So when I found out that the police pensions had disappeared, I thought, right, the governments have stolen these. Why? And then I thought to myself, that makes sense. If the police step down and there's no police on the streets, you'll need the National Guard. So people will welcome the National Guard because they're doing the job for the police. If the police have stepped down, I understand why the police have stepped down, because they've stolen all their money. So it makes sense to the normal person who doesn't know what's going on. So as part of NESARA and GESARA, the National Guard have to take control. So it's not a shock to anybody because the police have stood down, so they're taking over their jobs. And then I thought, and then they'll point out during this period that it wasn't King Juan Carlos, it's the government that stole it. So the public will rise up against the government and remove the government. And then a government will be formed under the theory that I've heard, under GESARA, under NESARA. And the first thing you'll know is if we've got a new government, they won't know anything about NESARA and GESARA. The terminology, they won't know about it. It will just be a new government. And this new government, they're going to come in. The first thing they're going to say is, we're going to pay your pensions for you. We're going to replace your pensions for you, which is how the system will work. So it'll just run so smoothly. And I just thought that's my Charlie thought process on what's happening. On the knowledge that I have, I put everything together, and that just makes sense then. So the general public will probably not ever know the word NESARA and GESARA. They'll just know that the debts are being removed and forget the fact that, oh, my pension's disappeared, but I'm still getting the money. Oh, well, I'll call it my pension. I'll call it my pension. That's fine. I'm getting my money back. That's how I see it working. So it won't cause this massive ripple effect. And one little point I want to make that you made just now about Ripple. XRP is not Ripple. They are different. And one guy very kindly explained that blockchain is like the railway line, XRP is like the train, and Ripple is like what you put inside the train. And that's how I understand it, because I don't understand it properly, but these guys do. And once he described that to me, I went, because every time I mention XRP, they go, oh, you mean Ripple? I went, no, I've never mentioned Ripple. Because when I was told that the operating system for the quantum financial system was going to be blockchain, it was going to be XRP, nobody mentioned the word Ripple, and nobody has done. That's a different thing altogether. But Ripple uses XRP as a train, if you like, or as an operating system. So
that's a very good point.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's, yeah, again, back to the wholly unbelievable, because it sounds so good. But, you know, I remember in the Middle East, and I do not know the details. You'll probably know this far better than I will. But I remember there was a guy named Gaddafi.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Gaddafi was a good guy or bad guy at the end of the day. But what I do know was there was something in Libya where they didn't have a central bank, from my understanding, and they were so wealthy with gold and oil that they actually took care of their people, not from a socialism standpoint, but from a standpoint of, we have resources, we have wealth. Like, I think if you had like a child, you got paid. If you got married, you got some money, things like that. A lot of people worry about something like that because we're so used to being, you know, we're not really capitalist in America. We were actually under fascism for a long time, and they don't realize that. Correct. But it's kind of sounds similar to that, where we should enjoy the fruits of our earth that should take care of us first and foremost. And then, you know, we'll pay some business taxes and things like that. And maybe some, you know, if you buy a boat, you can pay some tax. But we're going to a new world, it sounds like. We
certainly are. Gaddafi was a good man. I know his daughter, Aisha. And one thing with Gaddafi, he was trying desperately to have a currency backed by gold and not have the corrupt US dollar controlling the world. And that's why they killed him. Very simple. That's why they killed him, because he was trying desperately to have a currency backed by gold called the petrodollar, which was a gold-backed dollar. That's what he wanted to do. And he was a good man. It's very much like Saddam Hussein, another man. Yeah, he had his faults. We all do. I have my faults. He had his faults. But you need... I point this out to people, that Saddam Hussein kept Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Libya under control. And they are very powerful states. And to control a powerful state, you need a powerful man. There's none more so than Vladimir Putin in Russia. He runs a country that has 11 time zones, and I say full of psychopaths. And you need to have a super psychopath to control the lot of them. You know, if you put Theresa May or Macron or Angela Merkel or Boris Johnson in charge of Russia, it'd be anarchy. It'd be absolutely terrible. You need somebody very strong to manage people who are strong. And at the moment, most of the countries around the world have very, very weak leadership. And it's an absolute privilege and an honor to watch Donald Trump being a strong leader, having a strong wife behind him, doing the right thing. And he's working very, very, very closely with Vladimir Putin and with Chairman Xi in China, and also with Modi in India. They're working very closely together as a team, a band of brothers against what's evil. And what's evil is not going to give up easily. They're going to fight like dogs because they've had control for so long. But he's totally, totally in control. And they told me, I think 12 weeks ago, they passed the critical point. That was 12 weeks ago. And I said so in my videos, and people were like, really? And I look back and I think to myself now, really? We were past it then? But that's when he'd taken the head, the head of the beast out, which was the Venetians. That was the head of the beast. Once they were removed, All the other dirty little people had nowhere to run and hide. They were exposed because they were protected by these people. So we're coming into a wonderful world, Jason, and you and I are so fortunate and so blessed to be aware and awake of what's happening, and to be able to share our knowledge with people, because we're basically like frontline reporters in World War III.
I know. I never saw myself as a journalist. I just started wanting to talk to people. Yeah, you know what I did, honestly, Charlie. The reason why I started this is my purpose is to wake people up on natural health care, and then I just happen to like politics and finance and things like that. But ultimately, I wanted to learn from people. Like, I wanted to talk to people and learn from. Like when I do this show, it is not necessarily for fame per se. It's I want to actually talk to people so I can build up my knowledge base, because it's helping me and I can build my network as well. But it really is for my education. Then I like, hey, let's educate everybody else too.
I totally agree. And I get a lot of comments, you're only doing it for the money. And I said, no, as a matter of interest, I'm not monetized. I'm not doing it for the money at all. I spoke yesterday to Kelly Rivers from California. Hi, Kelly. She's absolutely brilliant. The River's Edge. She only has a small following, but she has a good spirit. And then I spoke to Dean in Patriots Parabellum, an absolute wonderful gentleman. Just started off with very few followers, and I was just inspired by him because he was telling the truth. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for how many followers you got. I'm looking for people that tell the truth. And it's something you can look at and just feel. And you can tell when people are telling the truth because it makes sense. The truth makes sense. Lies don't make sense. And you listen to it and you go, that doesn't make sense. And all these things that are happening now, where they're locking people down, making them wear masks, threatening them with a vaccine, none of it makes sense. So people are panicking and they creating confusion and fear. So this is why people like you and I, people are listening to us, because the truth makes sense.
I would 100% agree. Now I see a little QAnon sticker over that shoulder there.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long have you been watching, involved with, seeing, and reading the QAnon movement?
From a few years ago, I suddenly noticed it raised its head 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought that's interesting. But it was very much encoded in those days, and I didn't know anyone that could decode it, so I lost interest in it. But I think most people knew the truth about John F. Kennedy being killed. It wasn't by Lee Harvey Oswald, and most people knew September the 11th wasn't done by Muslims. It was an inside job, but you couldn't prove it. Is it like it was the same with O.J. Simpson? You looked at him, you just knew he was guilty, but you knew you'd never prove it. And it's very much the same as that. So Q came into my focus, and then I saw it grow. Then I was connecting with people that could decode the information. So if you have a military mind, that becomes second nature. Whereas for somebody like me, it was fairly difficult. And then I started to research Q and the history of Q and where it came from and what it was about. And that was fascinating because I found out that Q started off in 1962. And it was created by John F. Kennedy because he was worried for his own life. And he had people working within the White House that he knew something was not right. So he had this source of information that came out, who they chose to call Q. And it was just a source of information that came out the back door. But then over the years, when the information started to leak out, they basically executed them. They killed them. They removed them, and they just disappeared. Anyone that mentioned anything got removed. So you could tell that the deep state and cabal were in play all those years ago. They tried a few times since, and they got wiped out. And then 4 years ago, they reformed, but they'd done a lot more homework and planned it a lot more carefully and protected themselves. And I think they'd also connected with the White House and team in the White House that I would imagine, I don't know this factually, I'm just imagine that Trump gave it a blessing. That's what I would imagine. That's how I see it. Without promoting it, he just said, okay, we'll use this conduit, if you like, to provide information. Because one thing with Trump is he hates the mainstream media because they lie. He loves his tweets and he loves putting information out through trusted sources. But I've watched him make a press conference and then seen on the news completely different story come out. And you just go, really?
Right.
You think we're that stupid? We just heard what he said. But they do. They do. So that was the journey with Q. And then sort of I've got the thing over my shoulder there with the Q on it. It's just important to show people that. But I haven't actually been following the Q drops for about 12 weeks because the information I'm getting is direct. So I used to cross-reference it between the people I get the information from Q and from 3 or 4 different sources, so that I could ascertain in my own mind. So what you're hearing today is Charlie's view from the information I've got from 3 or 4 sources, and I'm interpreting what I see. And for some reason, what I see, people are connecting with because it makes sense. And it's huge. I feel greatly humbled by it, and also relieved that the information is getting out there. And I'm starting to see more and more what I'm saying come true. So that's a lovely feeling that things are happening.
Now, are you a big advocate, or are you a big believer that JFK Jr. is alive and helping make this thing go?
I would love to think so. I would love to think so. What I've tried to do, Jason, is avoid the controversial areas and the conspiracy areas. I've tried to stick to fact. I'd love JFK to be alive. I'd love Princess Diana to be alive. I'd love Michael Jackson to be alive. But they're all conspiracy theories. The one thing I've learned, Jason, is the truth is everything that's happened up until right now and what's happening now. The rest is just a theory, and it can be classed as conspiracy. I've tried to stick to truth. I've tried to point out the way that I think it is. And I don't think it'll affect too much what's happening today. It might affect the future, but I'm old enough and ugly enough to wait that period of time for to expose itself and to show itself. I'm not in that urgent hurry that I need to know. And I think, when you're going through a dark tunnel, which we've been through, to know everything at the end of it, I think is pretty boring. I think I'm looking forward to the day we come out the end of the tunnel. And it's a bit like when a baby's born. Everyone says, "Oh, would you like to know what sex it is?" No, I've got no interest. I want to be stood there with my wife, and when it comes out, do what every father does: count the fingers and toes first, and then check if he's got a willy. It's just very simple things that we do, because that's the only part that tells the difference between a boy and a girl when you're born. It's not the amount of fingers you have. It's not. You don't come out with long hair or short hair. You come out as a baby, and it's that pure excitement of waiting for. And I've never really been into knowing if it's a boy or a girl. I'll wait until it comes. And that moment of excitement is absolutely brilliant. Taking that away, I think, spoils it.
It makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, it's so funny. We focus so much on boy or girl or the details of what's happening versus what? Is it healthy? Are we moving into a new world? Is it a good world? Like, that's really what we need. And it's so funny you've said that, because I like to think he's alive. I like to think all those people are alive, but I also have to sit in my scientific brain and go, okay, we need to know what's happening tomorrow, because that involves lives. Michael Jackson being alive sounds good from a standpoint of a cultural standpoint, but it doesn't pay your bills tomorrow. Like, we need to know what's happening with people, et cetera, and as we go forward. So do you see a debt jubilee happening with this whole thing?
100%. 100%. It'll start. It's already started. Most people are unaware, and this is the sad part. Everybody, well, I'll believe you when my mortgage is gone. It's got nothing to do with this. When it's already happened to hundreds of people. Hundreds of people have had their houses, their mortgages disappear, their utility bills disappear, their student loans disappear, and the greedy, dirty, horrible bastards will be last in line. That's the good thing. I'm really happy for that. So the good people will be first. And if it hasn't happened to you just yet, you ask yourself that question, why? Because you're just motivated by money. It's not about that. And then there'll be people who've lost their houses, who've lost their cars, who've lost their jobs, who've lost their businesses. And not only will they be blessed, they'll be compensated. And it goes back to the birth of a baby. A woman is screaming in pain at how painful it is when she's contracting. And yet the moment the baby pops out, that pain disappears completely. And that's what we'll find when we get through this difficult time. The joy that we'll come into, and the pain that we've been through will disappear, and we'll come into this wonderful world of forgiveness of debt, compensation of debt. And that's how I see we're moving. And everything that Trump is doing is gearing up to that. When I get this information, it's very interesting, because when I get information, the unbelievable stuff, I just trust in God, and God has been guiding me to certain areas that you go, okay, it's not what I expected, but okay, let's go with this and let's see. We're in a very interesting period of our lives. The most important part is to remain calm and to fear not, because we're going the right direction. But at the moment, we're going through a very, very difficult period. Don't underestimate what we're going through. A lot of people are suffering. There's a lot of people in the world who live hand to mouth, day to day, week to week, who are having a very, very difficult time. But as I've stated in a number of my videos, every brilliant song came through pain and suffering.
That's really well stated, actually. It's interesting. I was watching the Republican National Convention the last couple of nights, and I watched last night. And first of all, what a polar opposite to the DNC. I mean, just mind. But if you can't sit there and listen to, God and country and patriotism over fear and everything else, like if you don't know who you're going to pick in this election at this point, I don't know about you. I really have concerns. But Melania spoke last night, and first of all, I don't think Melania is from here. I'm just going to say that. I don't know where she comes from, but it's not planet Earth, because she seems very mystical. She seems very just angelic, and there's something about her. But she had a line last night regarding it is our moral responsibility. I think those are the words: moral responsibility to take care and save our children. And as we go forward in this whole thing, whether Q is what it is, or JFK is alive, or whatever it is, or the financial system, at the end of the day, America and the rest of the planet, we have a massive crisis on our hands, and that is our children are being destroyed, whether it's mentally or literally physically. We need to save our children, because that is our future civilization. Talk to me a little bit on that, just because I know you are very close, and I know you have some kids and grandkids, and we want a bright future.
We certainly do. I was on a round table last night with two Americans and two English. The two Americans were Charlie Freak, who some people will know, and also Laura Eisenhower.
Yes.
We were talking about the children, and it was pointed out last night 1,000 children in the last week or so had gone missing in one of the states in America, and yet the mainstream media are not covering it. And I'm like, really? There's 22,000 children go missing every single day worldwide. Just let that sink in for a minute. We shut down the world's economy for a few people dying of a common cold, and yet we do nothing about 22,000 children disappearing in a day. What's wrong with us? And the mainstream media are complicit. Yes, I'm a father of four. I'm a grandfather of four. I lost my firstborn son 11 years ago in a car accident. And so I understand death. I understand losing a child. And it's one of the most painful things you'll ever do. But the way that the mainstream media have ignored children going missing, and then you and I and other people out there have done a lot of research into why are these children going missing? And then you find out that these evil forces behind the scene, and don't believe the media bullshit that there's no truth in the Pizzagate stories. There's plenty of truth in it. There is 1,000,000% truth in it. I've had interviews that I cannot publish, Jason. I've had interviews with women who've been to Epstein Island. I've had interviews with women that have been involved in this area and will not go public for fear of their lives. And I respect that. But the knowledge that I've got from them, I can tell you I trust it implicitly. Because when people tell you something, I just look in their eyes, and their eyes are the window to their soul. And I can tell the pain in their eyes is genuine pain from what they've seen and what they've heard. These children have been taken for absolutely horrific reasons. It's absolutely disgusting. The fact that, you see some of these famous Hollywood stars promoting certain anti-aging things using children's body parts, and the people still haven't woken up. Come on, what's going on with you? What's going on with you? And then you find out that they're drinking their blood to keep them young. Really? I was just in shock. I didn't believe it to start with. It wasn't until I started doing a lot of research. When I started doing the research, it tore me apart emotionally. And I had to build up another layer of skin to watch it because it was so disgusting. And I've got a number of layers of skin because I lost my parents when I was young. And due to the religion, I stepped out of the religion. My parents disowned me. And then when I found out my mother died, they told me six months later that she died. They didn't tell me at the time. And then I lost my eldest son. I lost my younger brother. So I understand pain, and you build up this layer of toughness. Inside, there's still a little Charlie inside that gets hurt by stuff like this. And it's taken a lot to go down that rabbit hole and understand what these dirty, disgusting, horrible people have been doing to children. And if Donald Trump, let's put it in perspective, if Donald Trump saved one woman from trafficking and one child from paedophilia, it makes him a wonderful man. But he's saved tens of thousands.
Yes.
It's been lost in the numbers. It's been lost because the media are not covering it. You need to wake up in America. You need to wake up in Africa, South Africa, Australia. Australia, you're living in an evil country run by evil people. There's children in tunnels in Australia like you'll never ever know that have been stolen. New Zealand, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You're in lockdown for a reason. You're being locked down for a reason because you've got so much evil in your country that needs to be got rid of, and these children need rescuing. This is not bullshit. This is not a game. You need to wake up to the truth. Some of you countries who think you're absolutely wonderful, and you'll notice the countries I haven't mentioned where it doesn't happen, is the Far Eastern countries of poverty like Cambodia, like Laos, like Vietnam, like the Philippines. These countries are full of love. And we've missed it. Our middle-class white countries who think we're wonderful, we're full of shit.
I would 100% agree. So, Mr. Ward, Dr. Ward, take us home. What is your parting message? And I'm going to have you back on because you're just too fun to talk to. You're so easy to chat with.
Well, yeah, we get on so well, but it's so easy to get on when you're telling the truth because you've got nothing to hide.
Yeah, it's literally like, I have friends who, around the country, and I'll go to a seminar or something like on a weekend in another city or another state or city, before everything went down. And, I'd come back with no sleep, come back home because we were up all night, not drinking, not partying, just talking because we were speaking truth. We were, getting information from each other, learning, it wasn't sitting down in front of a television, it wasn't getting wasted. It was literally just gaining knowledge. You come home and you should be exhausted because, you didn't get a lot of sleep, but you're actually empowered. You have more energy because this is what actually fuels the human soul.
Totally.
And so what do you see going forward for everybody? Give them a really good positive outlook and what they can expect over the next 3 months, because the election is in 3 months, up to say the next couple years, possibly. I mean, go as far as you want.
Well, we'll start off with the next month or so is going to be difficult. Let's start there. It's going to be difficult. We're going to have lockdowns. We're going to have all kinds of chaos and fear. But it will all roll up to the elections. And when Trump gets re-elected, because he will get re-elected, and he'll probably win by 90%. Let's put it in perspective. He'll probably absolutely landslide this one. When we get through this period right now, we're moving away from what's evil, what's corrupt, and then what the trouble we're going through right now is to wake everybody up to how bad these people really are. That's what it's about. We're coming from darkness into light. And when you get into the light, you need to understand what the darkness is so you can appreciate the light. And you need to know what evil is so that you don't vote for it again. Because a lot of you have been very, very careless with your voting. You voted like I did because they look nice. Not that I voted. As I said to Jason, the only time I voted was when I was a judge on Miss Bollywood in Dubai. That's the only time I've ever voted. Because I found it negative, because you voted against somebody rather than for somebody. You voted against people because you didn't like them. But now it's time to, when you vote for somebody, it's going to be a whole lot easier because you're going to do it from your iPhone or your computer because you're doing it on the quantum system. So we might actually get leaders that we actually want. But the most important through this difficult period is to understand what we don't want. That's very important, and hang on to that. And we've been dragged through the swamp so that we know what not to vote for. And then I think when we get into this beautiful new world, when we have a new government, it will not be Democrat, it will not be Republican. It'll be good over evil. And then we will choose our leaders that we want to lead us in this world. Whether it's called GESARA and NESARA, probably not. It will have a new name because it will change. A lot has changed, but the fundamentals will be there, and we'll choose people to represent us as our people, who work for us, who are controlled by us, to work and represent what we want. And that's where I see us going, and we'll have far more control. We'll have wrestled back control from what's evil. And I always look at it in very simple terms, like a battery. You need the negative will still be there, but we'll be connected to the positive, and the positive will be in control. So the light switch is on the positive side, whereas all the switches have been on the negative side for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Positive will have taken back control. There'll still be evil out there. It won't be perfect. There'll still be bad people out there. And without bad, you'll never appreciate good. But it's important that your moral compass is recalibrated. You understand what's evil, and you understand what's good, and you understand that good has taken back control. And that's where we're going. Good will be in control, and evil will no longer be in control. It will still be there, but we know who's in control. That's the most important thing. The devil has always been there since time began, and God has always been there since time began. It's just a question of who's in control, and we know that God's been in control for those of us that let him in control of our lives. And he's totally controlled Trump. So you don't need to worry about him because he's being protected by God, by his maker.
Beautifully said, sir. I love it. How can people, because you are a wealth of knowledge, where can people find you? How can people go to see you? Where can they go for the truth?
Well, I have my own website, which is drcharlieward.co.uk. Or if you just put Dr. Charlie Ward into YouTube, if they allow us to stay on there. But if not, we've got drcharlieward.co.uk, and I'll share the link with you so that people can go there, and people can. The one thing I always say to people, if I have no problem with anybody challenging me, but challenge me with facts. Don't challenge me because I've got a face for radio and I'm a 60-year-old bloke. That doesn't really cut the mustard with me. You know, when I'm in China, I love China. Little children come up and poke me in the belly because they think I'm pregnant. So if I don't get offended by that, I won't get offended by anything. Come to me with truth and we'll debate it. We won't fall out over it. We'll debate it. I'll hear your side, you hear my side. And we might agree to disagree. There's nothing wrong in that. But we'll debate it and we'll have an intelligent, informed discussion so that we can learn both sides. Because you'll never appreciate good until you understand evil.
Well said. And I thank you for being on tonight, but I also thank you for adding to my friends list, because it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and it was lovely to talk to you before. And I always tell people, I usually post it afterwards, and I still will, but I always tell people if that person was a class act. I never beat anybody up, but let me tell you, this guy was on with me about 10 minutes or so before we jumped on tonight, and he is just a total class act, the sweetest guy in the world. So, Miss Charlie Ward, I appreciate you very much.
Thank you very much, Jason. I really appreciate the time we spent together. I really do. Look forward to doing it again.
Thank you. I will be in touch. We will do that. We will get some more updates. Have a wonderful morning and day in Spain where you are, sir.
I certainly will. Thank you very much.
Be well. Dr. Jason Dean, Dr. Charlie Ward, Revolution Network. Have an amazing night. Be well, everybody. Take care.
Hi, it's Justin, and I hope you're enjoying my dad's videos. Make sure to share this video with family and friends, like and subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you get notified for all my dad's new videos. My social media will be tagged down below so you can follow it. And just remember, Jesus loves you.